Hi, my name is Michael Youngberg. I'm here on the behalf of the Palm Springs Public Library's Local History Project. I'm here today with my grandfather, Elmo Purnell, and my granduncle and aunt, Clarence and Louise Purnell. About 50 years ago, the Purnells moved from Beaumont to Palm Springs to buy into a meat market and grocery business. And they've been here ever since. We are at the Los Compadres Clubhouse in Palm Springs, and the date today is April 5th, 1987. Grandpa,
Yes, Mike.
when did your parents move to Banning?
I don't remember the exact year. When did we come to Beaumont?
1925.
That was the year you came to Banning?
Well, we came to Banning first, and Mother and Dad and myself stayed there for about a month. And then we bought a business in Beaumont and moved to Beaumont. We bought an ice plant and run it for quite a while, and then we built a building and put in a meat market. And Elmo came down about that time. He was through school in San Joaquin Valley, so he moved down to Beaumont and stayed with us and went to school in Beaumont.
What was the name of the business?
Oh, just a meat market. No names, really.
Can you describe Banning and Beaumont as you knew it then when you first moved to it?
Well, it's about like it is. It's grown some, but it hasn't grown a hell of a lot.
Do you remember any of the neighboring businesses, or?
Not really. No, we used to go over there to picture shows all the time in Banning, but outside of that, I don't remember any of the businesses.
We had an ice plant with a meat market in Beaumont. We owned that too. We delivered ice to all the homes in Beaumont.
How did you deliver the ice? In a truck, or?
We had a small truck. We made our own ice.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. From Beaumont, about what year did you move to Palm Springs, and why did you move down?
Well, we got word that they wanted to sell Hatchett's Market, so Elmo came down and worked 2 or 3 days to see what was going on, and in the meantime, he sold out his interest in a grocery store in Beaumont, and I sold my grocery store in Beaumont, and we came down in 1937 and bought out Hatchett's Market in February of '37.
So you came down before Clarence. About how long before he came and joined you?
Well, I was just working in the market about a month before Clarence got his business sold and came down and joined me.
So your experience with the two of you in the grocery business was that you both had different businesses in Beaumont?
Yeah.
Yes, we did have. He had one store and I had another one. We had 2 stores.
Competition. When you did move down, who was it? Just the two of you that moved, or were there any other family members, or?
We brought the whole family. I had my daughter, and Clarence had their boy Larry, and I lived in the market for a while. Then Clarence and Louise lived in a trailer. Then I moved back in Hatchett's Court, and we incorporated the living quarters into the store that I've been living in.
Louise, did you know any of the locals before the move, or were you fresh?
Well, we were pretty fresh. The only ones we knew were the Lilies that had an ice plant across the street from Hatchett's.
When you first came to Hatchett's Market, when you first bought it, can you describe what it looked like? Where it was located?
Yeah, I was on the corner of Indian Avenue and Arenas Road, and it's set kind of on a corner, and we had a driveway and up to it with a what do you call it, a shade over the front of it to keep the sun out.
It was open front.
And
just
it was all open.
Push the doors back. When you get to open up in the mornings, it's all open, all open.
You had like an awning over the top, or?
Well, it was just it was a built,
patio?
Well, patio type shed over the front. It was permanent, not, and it helped a lot to keep the sun out.
Was it just the two of you working the store, or was everyone involved? Were the kids hanging out down there?
Well, his wife Ann and I both worked in the store at times, and then I finally went to work steady. Business was, during the war, of course, it was pretty hectic, and so I worked steady then.
With the store, I remember that a lot of people, one of the things that was nice about your store, or the Hatchett's Market, was the fact that people could get credit there.
That's right.
Which helped, I guess, with the business.
Yeah.
As compared to the others.
Yeah, well, in those days, of course, people needed credit more than they do now, I guess.
Do you remember some of the people that you traded with, gave credit with? Some of the locals, some of the Indians?
Well, of course, we were there at Hatchett's, and the Hatchett's, and Viola Ortner now was young, and our children used to play together, hers and mine, and Elmo's.
Some of the old first-time settlers, did you deal with them? Nellie Kaufman, the Brotts?
We knew the Brotts, and knew the Brotts quite well, but we knew Nellie Kaufman, but not, you know, intimately.
We never had no contacts with her. She didn't trade with us or anything. We knew her when we saw her, but that's all.
I remember a long time ago when I was a kid, a story about a lady and her dogs, Mrs. Kellogg.
Kellogg.
Mm-hmm.
Could you comment on that briefly?
We knew her. I knew her when I was in Beaumont, and she had a lady up there in Beaumont that kept her dogs for her out in Cherry Valley, and she had about 100 Russian wolfhounds. And she used to buy some meat for me to feed those dogs. I used to order special meat for her.
Grandpa, do you remember the White sisters?
Oh, yes, very well. One of them used to dress in jodhpurs and riding breeches all the time and wear a pith helmet. They had property up close to the old Bank of America. I remember having tea with the old lady one time. I made a delivery for her, and she invited me in for tea. That was in the little home that's on Palm Canyon Drive now. It was made out of railroad ties.
Do you remember her first name? Was that Cornelia? Was that Cornelia White?
Yes.
You mentioned delivery. How'd you do the deliveries at the store? Old truck, car?
Oh, we had a pickup. Little truck. We delivered groceries in.
Did you deliver any groceries to the famous people at that time, the movie stars? Or?
Oh, I don't remember of any famous people at that time. Later on, and years later, we did. When I got my own store out in South Palm Canyon, I delivered to Lucille Ball and how about help me out.
Well, I can't remember either. Blank.
Oh, there's 2 or 3 others. I can't think of the names now. But we had quite a few drop in the store, buy groceries.
Dr. Scholl's was one of our customers, and for years, and he became kind of a personal friend.
What made the grocery store, or the store itself, different from the others in town? What you carried, the meat?
Well, I'd say the meat was a big drawing card. We always handled good meat and put it up nice.
To kind of go back before that, how did you two learn your trade? How did you actually learn to be butchers?
Oh, how do we learn the business? Oh, well, we were brought up in a butcher shop. My dad always had a market from the time we was 3 or 4 years old. So we grew right up in the business, and we run the slaughterhouse and bought beef and hauled it in and butchered it and cut it up.
They told the parents told about them standing up on boxes in order to reach, you know, to grind the hamburger. That's how small they were.
What were some of the other stores at the time that were competition for you around there?
Oh, there was Murray's, and the Safeway at that time was down in the middle of town, and Pop Gun.
Yeah, Pop Gun had a little store and service station.
Sales Market, Murray Brothers. There was a Chinaman at one time, had a small market up on Andreas and Indian Avenue.
With a store, do you remember some of the employees that you had there that worked with you over the years that you might want to bring up?
Well, Ann Goldberg was one that she came with the store. She worked for the former owners, and then she stayed with us for years and years. And Tony Biavoski was our vegetable man for a long time. And I don't remember.
Well, every year we had different help, more or less, some of them. There's about 5 of us that worked around the clock.
I see here, Grandpa, that you actually made a water cooler for the store.
That was the first water cooler we had in the store. I made it myself out of some chicken wire, Excelsior, and a fan. It worked pretty good.
Oh, gee.
Of course, we didn't have the humidity those days that we have now. It was more of a dry desert.
Okay, I need a drink. Go ahead. Louise, maybe you could shed some light on where my cousin Larry and my mother went to school.
Well, they went to Nellie Kaufman. That's where they started out, and went through high school.
At Palm Springs High?
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember any of the teachers that they had?
No, I don't.
What type of activities they participated in? Sports, friends,
Well,
shenanigans?
well, yeah, shenanigans mostly. Larry was on the football team, and they had some great games.
Were they in school the same year or different years?
Well, Elan was 3 years ahead of him, of Larry.
And what year was he a senior, or did he graduate?
Well, I'd have to stop and go back and figure, and he's so old now, and what year it was, I don't remember.
Okay. I was just kind of interested because I went to Palm Springs High myself.
Yeah.
I just kind of trying to think about how far back it was.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, you and our grandchildren kind of went along after one another in high school.
Yeah, I graduated in 1974, and I was 1 year ahead of Raymond, and 2 years ahead of Randy. So it was fun going to school with them. Family. During that time, in the early years of Palm Springs, what'd you do for fun, recreation?
Oh, we went swimming mostly, and we'd have barbecues, and you know, after we got off work. We didn't get off work till 10 o'clock at night, but then in those days, I mean, when it was in the summertime, it was hot anyway, and we'd maybe have a picnic sort of, or a barbecue, and go swimming. And we used to go swimming out at Warren Coble's, out at the ranch out there.
Where was that?
It's out just this side of Windy Point.
Oh, up in Western Village area.
Earl Stribby had a couple of theaters. We go to the show.
Clarence, what type of restaurants did you frequent? Nightclubs?
What was that like?
What type of nightclubs and restaurants were here at the time that you enjoyed?
We used to go down to Chi-Chi Bar once in a while, and I don't know, what else was open? Chi-Chi Bar and
Dollhouse.
And some little beer joints around. We had
And
beer
the Dunes, we had good food in the old days.
Ruby Dunes?
Yeah.
I believe that's a discotheque now. With the Chi-Chi Club, I remember my parents telling stories about that place, all the famous stars that came down. Do you remember any of the stars that played there?
No, I really don't.
Remember my mom talking about Nat King Cole,
Yes.
Dean Martin.
Yeah.
They used to, I remember now, they used to be there. A week at a time. They'd book them for a week.
2 weeks.
She always told me how she used to sneak in and watch the shows up on the balcony when she wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
In Cathedral City, there was a place called the 139 Club. Did you ever go there? Or?
That was the gambling place, wasn't it? Yeah, we went out there a few times. We never did gamble much, but we went out and looked at the crowd. They had a big crowd and something to do.
The other one was the Cove, where the Elks Club is now, called the Cove. There's gambling there. Then farther on out, they had it didn't last very long. They had the Dunes. It's a big gambling deal from the east, and it burned down. They didn't stay in business very long.
I remember the 139 Club in Cathedral, what is now Cathedral City, had like a round gun turret out front, the little peephole in the door. I remember playing around there when I was a little kid. My understanding now it's no longer around. It was knocked down for a municipal building in Cathedral City. You know who built that club or who brought it in?
No, I don't.
The 139 is a band that developed your acreage where your home is now.
Melrose?
Yes. He owned the 139 Club.
Well, Wertheimer one.
Wertheimer was at the Cove. He owned that. Him and his brothers.
You mentioned the summers being a lot drier than they are now. During the summertime, other than swimming, what else did you do? I remember the ranch, of course.
We worked 7 days a week, 6 in the morning to 10 at night.
6 in the morning.
So we didn't have much time to play.
Did you ever go down to the Desert Inn?
Only after I joined the Lions Club. We went there for lunch once a week.
I see. What other clubs were you involved with?
And I was involved with the Musco Padres. That's what when I got my horses, that was by recreation.
Well, weren't you a member of Masonic Lodge, Grandpa?
Oh yes, I was a Mason. I joined that too.
Yeah, because I was a member of DeMolay, and Mom was in Job's Daughters.
Yes. In fact, she was the first honored queen in Job's Daughters.
What is Job's Daughters? Do you know? Is that a branch off of something?
It's just for the younger girls. Their parents are Masons or Eastern Star, and they get the kids interested. Same as Demon Life for the boys. It works out the same way.
Clarence, can you describe what the town looked like back in those days? Paved streets?
Oh, well, there's Palm Canyon. It was paved, as I remember, and Indian Avenue had one oh, maybe 25 foot paved up through the middle. And big cottonwood trees all along one side. And it was pretty much like it is now, but just more buildings now than it was then.
I remember my dad talking about some orchards in town located close by.
Some what?
Orchards?
Figs.
Oh.
Figs you're talking about, I think.
Where were they at?
Well, they were there on the reservation, on back of the store. In fact, the little apartments, they were all around through the apartments planted.
And that's Hatchett's Court?
Mm-hmm.
Remember my mom, of course, a lot of stories that she told us. She mentioned one about the Indian Roundhouse. What was that?
That was just a block back of the store. There's a big round building all covered with palm leaves on the sides and on the top for shade and turned the rain, and that's where the Indians held their meetings and had their funerals there and had big dinners. We sold meat for the dinners a lot of times.
Do you remember any of the Indian lore that was, the folklore that was?
No, I can't remember their names. Do you remember any of their names?
I remember one, Segundo. He was chief for quite a while.
Well, Potencio was too, wasn't he?
Yes, Potencio. There was another old Indian.
They're all gone now, all those old timers.
Do you remember any of the old Indian tales?
No.
Like I remember how, and I don't know how true it is, how Tahquitz Canyon got its name. Quote unquote, a god, Indian god lived up there by the name of Tahquitz, and occasionally he would get hungry and come down and steal Indian maiden and go back up there. Hide under the big Tahquitz rock. All the Indians were scared to go up in there to do any rescuing or anything. So.
You know that when the moon is a certain spot where it throws a shadow up in the canyon there, you can see an old witch riding a stick up there.
Tahquitz witch?
Yeah, you can
You
see.
ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the early morning if the sun is just right.
Yeah, when the sun, the shadows are just right. I've seen that several times.
My mom was telling me one time when she was in school, her senior year, she was partying or swimming back in Palm Canyon. It's a big swimming hole back there. And she remembered that she had to take a final for exam for English. And how she rushed back into school and took the test in her swimsuit.
Yeah, we used to have a big swimming hole there at what they call the Green Tree. It's just above Palm Canyon, about a quarter of a mile. It's just a big hole, and a lot of people went swimming there.
I know I did when I was a kid. Of course now it's illegal, but we used to hike back in there all the time. Grandpa, can you remember any of Granny's clubs that she belonged to?
Anyone?
Any of the clubs or civic groups that she used to belong to?
None of that. The only civic group I belonged to was the Lions Club. That was the only one.
That's
No,
one.
Ann, he's talking
Yeah,
about.
Granny.
Oh, Ann. Well, she was an Eastern Star. She also belonged to Lusher Padres. That's the only two. She bowled quite a bit. The old bowling alley used to be on Palm Canyon.
Where on Palm Canyon? I didn't know that.
Huh?
Where on Palm Canyon?
Up there where the old fire station used to be. Across the street.
On Indian Avenue, Palm Canyon area?
Palm Canyon. Not an Indian. Right before your time.
Yeah, before my time. The bowling alley I remembered was at the Palm Springs Mall.
Yeah.
But that's no longer there. That's out in Cathedral
Oh,
City
yeah.
now.
That was later.
I think Grandma was also a member of the Women's Club, wasn't she?
No, well, she was for a while. They used to meet over. They had a meeting place over by the Presbyterian Church. Used to meet over there.
Louise, I remember you telling stories about the flood of 1938. You shed some light on that?
Yeah, well, we were all shut off, both entrances to Palm Springs you couldn't get in or out. And first the gas went off. And we lived in Hatchett's Court at the time. And so I had electric oven. So I cooked for everybody around in the electric oven. And then the electricity went off. And then one of the women had a wood stove in her cabin. So then we'd cook big pots of stew and things like that on the wood stove in the cabin. And of course no light, no electricity, no lights. So we sold, everybody was out of candles. All the stores were out of candles right away. So this friend of mine and I bought up all of the sealing wax in town. And we made candles out of that and sold them for $1 a piece.
Made some good money, I'm sure. Clarence, when I was a little boy, I remember taking summers up in the high Sierras on the ranch, Jordan Hot Springs. Can you tell us about that, when we first got into it?
Oh, that, we bought that in '41. And we went up there every year and spent 3 to 4 months. I'd go for a while and come back, and Elmo and he'd go up and spend some time. And we done that for, well, we were up there 26 years. And then we sold out, but it wasn't a big business, but we made expenses and had a good place to spend the summers.
Where was it located?
Well, we were up 395 toward Bishop. You turn off at Olancha, and we had a pack station at Olancha. It was 22 miles back in the mountains from Olancha, so we had to pack everything on mules and horses and ride. So.
Yeah, I remember those pack trips in. The horses you always had us ride. Remember one was chocolate, I think. I'm not sure. But David always got that one, and every time he got within smelling distance, he would take off of the ranch. And we were all scared that David was going to be lost, but he'd be at the ranch ahead of us, just like that.
Well, it was a hurry to get home, I guess.
I was hungry. But it was like a halfway station or a pack station, or what was the original intent of it?
Well,
The resort itself?
It was a resort.
Hunting and fishing resort.
Hunting, fishing? I remember the hot spring, taking a bath down at the hot springs down by the, 9 Mile Creek?
Yeah, they're still operating.
It was a lot of fun for a kid. A lot of fun. I remember that's where my first memory of fruit cocktail Jello.
Uh-huh.
And that was made in the cabin outside the main gate. There was a guy that used to camp there all the time. And he made it in the creek that went by the cabin. I don't remember who that was at all, but it was a good time.
Caught lots of fish.
Yeah, did we fly in there a couple times or close by?
You could fly in halfway to Wenatchee Meadows, and then you had to pack the rest of the way. Another 10 miles.
Yeah, I flew in one time with my grandmother, and that was the first time I got airsick, too. It's the last time I flew into that place. What year did you sell the ranch?
What was that?
What year did you sell the ranch?
1965.
I wish we still had it.
Yeah, but I continue to go up. I've been up there every year since. Last year, I think was the last year I'll go up though. Well, our grandkids, they go up.
Yeah, someday I'll make a trip back up there myself.
You ought to go up with Randy and Raymond.
Yeah, taking the time. Grandpa, why don't we get you to talk about Los Compadres? How it started, when you joined, some of the activities?
It really started about 1939. I didn't join till 1940. I'm not a charter member. I've been pregnant 4 times. And this clubhouse we're in right now used to be the guardhouse at Tony General Hospital, where they put the bad boys. When they bought it, had bars in the windows. Small windows had the bars in the windows. We moved it down here from Tony General and bought the land. And we've been adding to it ever since. Working on the stables. We used to have 2 barns. We tore one down, made a parking lot. Now we bought about 40 horses. Some of them are compadres, some are outboarders. The club's very active. Now it's, instead of taking trips on horseback, a lot of members have motorhomes. And they set up trips to the motorhomes. Make reservations ahead of time and go to different places. Like this month, they're going to Calico for the camp out over there. They have hamburgers every Wednesday night, very nominal price. We do all our own work, don't hire nothing done. That was the original idea of the club. Is have something for the local people, not the millionaires. The desert riders are considered millionaires.
Oh, is that the Desert Riders?
Yeah, they hide their work done.
I see. Did you know some of the club members who were members of both Los Compadres and Desert Riders?
Yes. Jane and Muhuff are members of both clubs. I can't think of it too, but there's not too many Desert Riders that belong to Los Compadres. Not too many. Frank Bogart belongs to both of them.
Earl Neal?
Who?
Earl Neal?
But he's not a rider. He used to belong to Los Compadres. He's dropped out now.
How long ago was it that you stopped riding?
Pardon?
How long ago was it that you stopped
About
riding?
5 years ago. I had trouble with my legs. Lost my horse about the same time, so I never did buy another horse.
You used to love your horses. The only horses we could ride. How did Los Compadres tie in with Desert Circus, or did it at all? Or
We didn't work at the desert too much. Except we rode it in the parade. We had what we call Western Week. That's the first decision. In September, October. We'd have a parade, sometimes a rodeo, barbecue, street dances, kangaroo court. That's where we got our start and made the money to buy the land here in the clubhouse.
sounds like fun? I mentioned the clubhouse coming from Torney General, which
Yes.
was the El Mirador Hotel, which was converted into the hospital for World War II. Clarence, can you tell us about how the times were, the store, how it worked during that time with all the soldiers in town? And were you busy, or?
Well, during the war, we sold everything we could get a hold of. I mean, they rationed butter and meat and eggs, and every time whenever we got it in, we always had a big rush. It was lined up for a block long to get meat every morning, and we only had enough meat to last about 2 or 3 hours, and then we'd be out. But one day there was a truckload of meat tipped over on the highway out at Windy Point. It was going to the hospital, and they turned it down, but it was all wrapped in burlap, and it didn't get dirty. So we bought it, and we had meat for about a week after that, and we had big crowds every morning waiting for it. So it'd last, what we had cut up would last till about noon, and then we'd close up and start cutting for the next day. And we'd cut maybe meat all night. So
What was the meat then like compared to now? How was the quality?
Oh, well, the price is much cheaper than it is now, of course, but it's the same quality of meat. In fact, we had good meat in those days.
Where'd the meat come from?
It was butchered in L.A. and San Bernardino and Riverside, different wholesale houses.
When it was brought down here, where'd you keep it?
Well, we had a fairly good-sized box, and then we had some stored in the ice house. They had a storeroom in it, which was below freezing, or down to freezing, and we had some of it stored in there. We used it up.
How long did you own the store?
Well, I was there for 10 years, and I sold out to Hutch Mosley, and then I was out of business for a few years, and then I built a building on Palm Canyon and opened up a store there with Bill Rogers. But Elmo was, I guess you was in the Hatchett's Market for 25 years, wasn't it?
A good 25 years.
About 25 years.
What year did you sell it, or sell your interest?
Oh, let's see, I went in there in 41 or 43, and I got out about 53. And I was out of business for about 3 years, and I got back into business for about 10 years. And then I sold out to Bill Rogers, my interest, and I spent most of my time in the mountains from then on.
Where was your store located?
1111 South Palm Canyon.
Is there a business there now, or?
Yes, there's a liquor store in there, and what do you call it?
Creative Expressions.
The Indians has got a store in there now.
See, originally, we built the building, and when the lease ran out, then it reverted back to the Indians who owned the land, who was Priscilla Gonzalez. And in the meantime, our grandson married her daughter. And now she has the building that we built and has Creative Expressions.
Back in the family. That's nice. Grandpa, how long were you in the store? What year did you sell it, or?
I closed it up. I didn't sell it. I just run out of business. The big supermarkets closed me up. So I just closed the place up in '64 and just retired for a while, and I went back to work as a meat cutter, some of the local markets.
I remember, I think they turned that into a health food store.
Yes.
Well, is there anything else anybody remembers I'd like to bring up?
Oh, I don't know anything special. You know.
Grandpa?
I haven't any more to add, Mike. It's been a pleasure. Talk about the old days.
And Louise?
Well, same here. Just like I say, now the Indians are in our family that own the land, and of course we've been friends all these years with Viola Ortner Cooper and some of the other Indians, Priscilla and her family, sisters and brother and her children. And
okay. Well, I learned a lot today. Some things I didn't remember or even know about. But I do thank you for sharing it. Thanks for showing up.
pleasure.
Hi, I'd like to introduce my mom. This is
Hello.
Elan Sarah Youngberg.
Yeah.
And we're standing in front of the start of Los Compadres. They're the first presidents of the club, dating way back to 1940. Mom, you might want to comment on some of these that you know. You know them a lot more than I do.
I know all of them except for the very first one up there. I'm not sure who he is. This is Joe Butler. He was a charter member of the Los Compadres and evidently the second president. This was Hutch Mosley. He was my dad's partner in Hatchett's Market after Clarence sold out. And this is my dad, Elmo Purnell. And this is Kenny Paul. He used to have Kenny Paul's service stations. In fact, his son still runs the tow services here in town. And this is Walt Spalding. He had a Western shop up across the street from the El Mirador. And let's see, this is Phil Delano. I don't remember him very much at all. George Strebe, of course, most everybody remembers the Strebes. And this is Bob Bennett, and I'm not too familiar with him. And also Del Smith. This is Jimmy Cooper. He's still here in town. He publishes a newsletter, or he did publicity and that type of work. This is Ellie Winhurst, and he's still a member of the Los Compadres. He's still very active in the Los Compadres and the Mounted Police.
We missed the one. I missed the one over here.
This one? Yeah, Del Smith, I'm not sure who he was.
Well, Jimmy's still a member of the club, Mom.
Yeah, he's still a member of the club.
He's still active. And Joe Butler, he shows up occasionally. He hits a couple hamburger nights a year. And I'd just like to point out that the one picture here of Grandpa was for 2 years that he was president.
Yeah.
He was a total president for 4 years, which only a couple people have accomplished. And just for being fair, this first president was named Johnny Scott.
Like I say, I just don't remember him at all.
Well, didn't you know George pretty well, Mom?
Yeah, I knew George Strebe. I knew all the Strebes. And like I say, that like Dad probably told you or in the early part of the interview, why they owned the local theaters in town. And that's where the kids used to go on Saturday afternoon matinees and all that kind of good stuff. And he also, George and his first wife, Ethel, owned the Dollhouse. And that was the party place of town. I mean, everybody went to the Dollhouse, all the local people.
I think Dad was with some friends down there. He was a bouncer at the door.
Yeah, my husband at one time was sort of a semi-official bouncer for the Dollhouse.
Was he
a long time ago.
On the sheriff's department at the time?
Yeah, he was on the sheriff's department at that time.
I remember he told stories about the door. It was like a Dutch door. It had half a door, and the way they would throw guys out was they'd pick one up by the seat of the pants, start throwing, and they'd shut half the door, and that's how they'd get him out. A little rough, but...
Yeah, they had some good times there.
That is terrific. That is just great.
And my dad here, I don't know whether he remembered telling you or not, but he was also the captain of the Mounted Police for a couple of times. And in fact, I think he still owns his honorary badge number 13. But he was very active in the Mounted Police and ran the rodeos and the Los Compadres and all that Western type thing, the horse business.
Yeah, I used to sell, with my brothers, used to sell the programs down at the
Angel Stadium when that was...
The rodeo down there, and that was located by the Angel Stadium, which is now the Big Palm Springs Swim Center.
That's where the rodeo arena used to be years ago.
Favorite event was watching the cowgirls or the cowboys being dragged on the cowhide around the ring. It was a fun time. What's Mommy doing? She being a fool back there?
You want to explain that you have 4 generations of... Oh, not her.
You mean a dingy.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that this is 4 generations of what has ended up to be the Youngberg dynasty. My grandfather, Elmo Purnell, my mom, Elan Youngberg. I'm Michael Youngberg. And this is the newest, Madeline Elan Youngberg. And she's about 8 months old right now. So we've got a lot of years spanning here.
Go ahead, Michael.
So I'd like to point out this is an early picture of my grandmother. I'm guessing that this picture is in Los Compadres stable area.
It's probably, Mike, it was during one of the guest rides or a party. As you can see, she's carrying a big coffee pot, so that's probably what it was. And then right above her is a picture of my dad and Virginia Paul, Kenny Paul's wife. And then right next to that over here is, this is the square dance club that they formed, a bunch of the Los Compadres.
There's
Granny. Yeah, that's Granny. That's Grandpa. This is Swede Davis. He has Ramon Furnishings on Ramon, and he's dancing with his wife. And Bill Rogers and his wife, they're old-time Palm Springers. And most of the pictures on this wall are from way, way at the very beginning of the Los Compadres. As you can see, way up at the top is when they first moved the building in from Attorney General, and they're setting up actually building the club is what they were doing up there.
Yeah, this is a picture right after the fire
And
that they had in the kitchen area. And you can tell how far, in those days, they were way out in the desert by what's behind it. They're just way out in the boondocks.
And then next to it is a picture of the old post office. That was probably during Western Week. And the post office at that time was down in the plaza, which is still there. And then below it is a picture of the Los Compadres and a whole bunch of them. There's quite a few familiar faces in the picture, but it'd be awfully hard to point them out to you. There's Moya Henderson and Joe and quite a few others in there, Jane Huff. And then next to it over here is another picture. I think this was also a square dance group. There's Joe Butler and my mom and dad and Kenny and Virginia Paul. And then the pictures here, these are all probably breakfast rides or trail rides up into the canyons where they used to go on Sunday mornings or whatever to have their breakfast. And this is down in this area. This is a whole bunch of this is all the Los Compadres that had horses at one time here. They're all lined up in front of the club. And if you could see in the background, you see that there's absolutely no buildings or anything visible at all in there. And this is down at the Palm Springs Mounted Police Rodeo when it used to be down where Angel Stadium is now, or the swim center. And that's my dad here, and then some of the other mounted police that belong, most all the mounted police belong to the Los Compadres at one time or another. It seemed like they kind of went together. And let's see, what else can we find for you here?
Well, here's a nice picture of one of the rides in through one of the Indian canyons.
Yeah, that looks...
Which, typical of what they did.
Either for one of their dinner rides or their breakfast rides, or...
And these are some of the early parades that they had at the time, which I'm guessing would be desert circus parades.
Either that or maybe their own Western Week parade.
And here's an early photo of my grandmother, who's right here. And I don't recognize any of the others. But that's at the post office also, which, as is this picture here.
Other than that, well, I think we just pretty well, that's the, like we said, the early days of the Los Compadres in Palm Springs. This picture right over here, this gal here, that's Jackie Autry. She's married to Gene Autry now. She used to be a member of the Los Compadres. In fact, she was vice president at one time, I believe, and secretary and treasurer. She held quite a few offices in the club. And she was real active in the club when she was here. And let's see. Hard to tell. Oh, this is, you can barely see it, but this is the chuck wagon here and here. The Los Compadres, they built their own chuck wagon, and they'd take it out with a big truck or a Jeep or something like that. And they had everything in that chuck wagon, all their cooking utensils. They even had the big tables that would slide out from the bottom so they could set them up and have their breakfast wherever they ended up stopping and stuff. But everything was carried on the chuck wagon.
I think I will end with that. That's wonderful.
And